Well, it seems for us peasant civilians, we've received another shot across the bow as the Department of Defense seems to have put forth another escalation, possibly signaling some pretty serious events here in the home front of the United States. Take a look at it. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zach, the Wretched Watchman. I'm bringing you a little bit of news when it comes to what's going on here on the home front. And so we've been paying attention, at least we try to pay attention to as much as we can when it comes to escalation, when it comes to the downturn of the United States of America here. And, we've got the American narcissism that everything is about us. But ultimately, when it comes down to triggering the explosion of the world, the United States is one of the places that is really kind of holding things back for when that time comes. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet, so things aren't ready for that, and everything will happen in perfect timing according to God's clock, of course. But that doesn't stop us from paying attention to when they start escalating things when it comes to little directives and mandates and bulletins and rulings and all these types of things. And so we've been watching this stuff as it come along. Anything from different bills like TikTok bills and the omnibuses that they put forth to different bulletins. Like just a few years back, they put out a bulletin declaring that parents who oppose the leftist, the woke directives and stuff from school boards can be deemed as domestic terrorists and whatnot. And so the latest that we've got coming on now is the DoD, who has updated a directive from 2016 where they have added some stuff that includes using lethal assault on civilians if need be while working in conjunction with law enforcement. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what we got going on. So this is directly from the Department of Defense, and it's Directive 5240.01. And as we can see, it's the DoD intelligence and intelligence-related activities and defense intelligence component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. Now, that's important because that means they must work in conjunction with the local law enforcement. And so if you know anything about when it comes to tactics, when it comes to these types of things, I'm not a military guy or anything like that, but I have a basic understanding of tactics. Usually when a foreign military goes into another country, they try to establish contact with locals there because it allows them to establish a base of operations, intelligence, navigation of the area, other contacts, as well as translation stuff. There's a whole heaping load of things of what they try and do with that. So they always try to establish contact with local entities, authorities there. And so it's the same thing kind of here, where the upper echelon military, they're going to come and establish connection with the locals of the area. So your local departments of sheriff's police, National Guard, anything like that. So that's key. So they're going to be working in conjunction. So that's, basic understanding of that 101, I guess you could say. It says effective of September 27th, 2024. Now, again, as I said earlier, this is an updated version of the 2016 directive that they had already in place. So they're just updating it, and it's now in effect as of September 27th. And so keep in mind, this is a directive. This isn't a law. And so this is the Department of Defense directive, which means the Secretary of Defense has to approve this stuff. So keep in mind with that as we go along. And then if we jump down to the bottom, purpose, this issuance, number 3 says assigns responsibilities and provides guidelines for defense intelligence component intelligence assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. So we're just confirming what this is about. So section 1, applicability here. it kind of runs down who's all involved with this, which I think this is important to at least have under our belt here. It says the issuance applies to the to OSD, the military departments, the office of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Joint Staff, the combatant commands, the office of Inspector General of the Department of Defense, the defense agencies, the DoD field activities, and all other organizational entities within the DoD, referred to collectively in this issuance as the DoD components. So they're making sure that they've got all their ducks in a row of who all this applies to: military, Department of Defense, and so on and so forth. So these are guys that can do some damage, to say the least. And then I just want to point this out because the next part is involved in Section 3 here. And so Section 3 is indeed defense intelligence component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. So just wanted to make sure that we understand what section we're in here. So if we go to Section 3.3, this is where we get the additional wordage, additional directive added from the 2016 directive. It says defense intelligence components may provide personnel to assist a federal department or agency, including a federal law enforcement agency or a state or local law enforcement agency, when lives are in danger, in response to a request for such assistance in accordance with following approval authorities. Whose lives are in danger? We don't know. Can they just make up the stuff? Again, like the thing, I feel threatened, which we've been starting to see a lot when it comes to law enforcement. This is so easily manipulated, but of course they make it so it can be for whatever they need it for, ultimately. And so if we go to Section A here, Secretary of Defense approval. It says the Secretary of Defense may approve any type of requested permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2. And then if we jump down to subsection A, it says provision of personnel to support response efforts for civil disturbances, which may also require presidential authorization. Subsection B says DoD response to chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive incidents. And then subsection C is where we get to basically, well, I got to be careful because of the platform I'm on, ending people's lives, so to say. It says assistance in response with assets with potential for lethality, or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian law enforcement officials in situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated. So again, it's not even saying it must be happening. No, if they anticipate it, again, I feel something is going to happen. So get out there, boys, load up and see what you can do. So this is what we got with the directive. I'll just kind of throw it up here again. So they're talking about, again, potential for lethality, using lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury of other civilian Americans on U.S. soil. And so let's just kind of break some of this down in past history. As we know, and I know there's some people that still can't wrap their minds around this. There has been a long history of the United States ending the lives of other people who live in the United States. This is nothing new. This is nothing that's been different in any type of way. They're just adding on more ways that they can do it. They've done it through very many different ways before. Again, we can't necessarily get into those topics here on YouTube, but you understand what I'm saying is this is no different than what the government has done in the past. They've constantly have killed their own people, as other governments have done as well. So no difference there. Another thing that I wanted to point out has to do with some information that came back when Obama was president. That was back when they were doing basically questionnaire type stuff. I don't know exactly what you would call it, surveys, questionnaire, whatever, for generals when Obama was in office. And they were basically asking generals, would you order your military personnel to fire upon U.S. citizens? And so they were doing a removal process of any generals that would not do that. Obviously, they were preparing for something. Now, of course, we go back then, we were freaking out. Oh, something's going to happen right now. It never did. But obviously, we can see that they're taking these steps as we move forward. with these directives and mandates and questionnaires and all this stuff, all the language verbiage that you want to put in there. Another thing that I've also discovered is you go back a few years, Kamala Harris was saying that she would like to weaponize the Department of Defense in order to institute new things as the government sees fit, the administration would see fit. So we got that as well. But of course, we know she's not too bright there. Lights are on, but nobody's home, to say the least. So we understand that she's not necessarily the one that would be making those orders. It would be the others. That's why they're kind of handing it to the Secretary General here, or Secretary of Defense, Joint Chief of Staff, and all that. And then another thing that I find fascinating is if you guys go back to July of this year, we had basically the ruling from the Supreme Court, the Trump versus State Supreme Court ruling, that basically made the president a dictator at that point. They basically established that anything that falls under presidential duties he's not liable for anything. So it's kind of making him a dictator. I don't think that had anything to do with this administration. I think it's preparing for the next administration, whoever that might be. We don't know. But either way, it seems like this is kind of working in conjunction with that, because there is some sections regarding presidential authorization. So again, if it falls in line with presidential duties, there's going to be no worries there. So that's another thing as well. And I bring that up because I know a lot of people, when they look at this, they instantly think of this election and possibly, doing something to disrupt this election. And so I think, and I'm not planting my flag. I'm not saying anything. I'm just going with my thoughts on this stuff. I think there's so many eyeballs on this election in particular to try and do something in the grand scheme like that. I don't see it happening. I'm not saying that it may not happen. I'm just saying I don't see it happening. I think we're going to have an election. I think they've been preparing for one side in particular to win. And I've seen a lot of stuff recently that makes me lean in that direction. And I think they're going to go through it like normal. Now, there might be some, controversies and stuff along the way, but I think it'll just go through. And I think they're preparing everything for the next administration, the next puppet that they will install. Again, these presidents are not elected, they are selected. I believe they already know who's going to win. They've picked them already, and they're going to put them in place when the time comes. That's just history. That's how it goes. If your vote mattered, then they wouldn't allow you to do it. Thanks, Mark Twain. But ultimately, I think all of this stuff is in preparation for what's coming after the election. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that that it's going to go exactly like that, so don't take me at my word for that. I'm just, from what I've seen, history and some news and stuff that I've seen the past couple of months, seems to be going in that direction. But again, things can change very quickly. But when we look at the dictator thing, when we look at this directive, and we look at some of the other stuff that they're applying, they are preparing for a collapse. And as we know, as Bible prophecy watchers, the United States is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. People like to squeeze in as much as they can to say that they're this or they're that, or they're mystery Babylon and stuff like that. None of that makes sense. None of it fits scripture, and you have to take things out of context and twist things and whatnot to do it. We know the United States has to become so insignificant that they're not worth mentioning, and as we know, they're the ones that are kind of holding things back right now. So for us as Bible prophecy watchers and whatnot, we're seeing steps being taken in order to bring about the downfall of the United States, and we must fall. We are kind of holding things back at the moment. There's no fixing what's coming. There's no repairing anything. There's no making us great again or any of that type of stuff. They are in full preparation to get everything going so they can start a quicker and the next step, the next phase of their global destruction. Because again, we have to they have to destroy what's already there in order to bring in the next infrastructure, the next Antichrist beast system, of course, the one world economy, one world government, one world religion, and all that. And so we're seeing these steps being taken. And this next directive that they just put forth that is now in effect has to do with the United States military and law enforcement being able to take the lives of U.S. citizens on U.S. soil if they so choose. So I'm not sharing this to scare anybody. I'm not sharing this to freak anybody out. We shouldn't worry, especially us who are saved and are Christians. Death is the one thing that we never have to worry about. Actually, as Paul tells us, death is something that we actually can taunt, because to die is gain, because we will leave this temporary body and leave this sinful earth and go and join in the presence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So we shouldn't worry about death. We shouldn't fear about death. We shouldn't worry about any of these things, but let this be an opportunity to be able to use it as a witness to those. Remember, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of Christians who have come to Jesus and received a true salvation based on the book of Revelation, based on the teachings of hell, and based on the stuff that we're going to be seeing, judgments and whatnot, and they do not want to go through them, so they come to the Lord through that. So keep that in mind as we go across this. All right, guys, that's all I got. Just wanted to bring that to you and let you know what's going on. This new directive is pretty interesting, and it's telling us that they're just getting stuff ready for whatever they got planned coming down the pike. So don't worry, do not fear, continue to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and ultimately that's what matters. So all right, guys, I'll leave you right here. This is Zach the WretchedWatchman. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Maranatha.